Luis, part of the driver of the business for Copart is you need totaled cars to go to auction. And a lot of people, we'll talk about this rise of autonomous vehicles, improved safety technology in vehicles, and the idea that, maybe sometime in the future we have far fewer accidents, far fewer fatalities, those sorts of things. How do you think about that risk for Copart's business?
Right. So cars are getting safer, right? And that's great for everyone. But the reality is that we're still going to have accidents, even if cars are safer. And there's a couple of long-term trends that are actually working in their favor. I mean, the biggest one is really just that the population's growing and there's more people driving. There's more the miles driven, the total miles driven in the US and around the world has steadily gone up every year, about like 1 to 2% per year. So just kind of logically, the more cars that are on the road, the absolute number of accidents is going to be higher. The other interesting thing that actually specifically relates to autonomous and electric cars is that as you put like more technology into the car, it makes it harder to repair the car. It makes it more expensive to repair the car. The parts in the car are worth a lot more money. So that actually increases. There's an increasing rate of totaled cars, right? So if you go back to the 1980s, and you look at like the car crashes that happened in like literally like 1980, only about 5% of cars that were in a car crash in 1980 were considered total. Fast forward 40 years, and now it's more than 20% of cars that are involved in accidents are totaled. And it's because of that gap between the value of the car and the cost to repair it. I mean, I don't know if you have any insight into this, but I've heard that repairing a Tesla is extremely expensive, right? It's probably more expensive than repairing a Camry that you can probably source at like a local mom and pop repair shop.
Yeah. Certainly, there's puts and takes with Tesla because they run all their own service operation or and make all their own parts and all those sorts of things. But certainly, as you put more tech in a vehicle, it just stands to reason that the cost of repair goes up. So just an example to think about. So we're entering this world where many more cars are going to have standard features similar to Tesla Autopilot. So advanced driver assistance systems for the highway and that sort of thing. And part of that is you see lots of automakers putting things like cameras and radars and lidars in their bumpers and all around the car. So it turns from a fender bender that damaged a cheap piece of plastic to a fender bender that damaged a cheap piece of plastic with lidar and cameras and radar embedded in it. And of course, auto companies are going to take steps to protect that type of technology. But again, that technology is sensitive and mistakes still happen. I think one other thing to think about as well is as autonomous technologies roll out, one of the first places they're going to be rolling out is to places like highways. So Tesla Autopilot highway, GM Super Cruise highway. Now Tesla's tried to push out into some other areas, but predominantly guided for use on the highway. And most accidents, the highway is much safer than the traditional surface streets. Makes sense. They were designed that way. You don't get a curve over a certain gradient. You never make an unprotected left turn. All those sorts of things. So I think there's an argument to be made that in the near term, as some of these autonomous technologies roll out and their use case is applied in some of these areas that are already pretty safe, that on the margin you see some net effects of total loss going up, because people are still driving and making those same mistakes, when they turn left in the intersection or what have you. Now, there is going to be a certain point, you would think, where crashes go down enough across the board that it impacts somebody like Copart. But I would say that in the near term, there may actually be a little bit of a tailwind to go off of what Luis just said about we're on this long-term trend towards higher total loss rates for vehicles. And with more tech going into the vehicle, I don't think that's going to turn in reverse in the super near term, like next 5 years.
Right. I mean, if you look at the data, back 30, 40 years ago, the rate of fatality in a car crash was like 3x, 4x what it is today. And if you look at just like the past 10 years, we've started to have some of these like technologies, these safety technologies, and the the rate of accident hasn't really, it doesn't go down every year, right? And I think it's been pretty flat over the last few years. And maybe on the margin, as autonomous vehicles come online, like you said, like it does kind of ease lower. But this is already like a headwind that the company has theoretically been facing for a long time, right? And there's actually some tailwinds to that, right? Because now you have this whole issue of distracted drivers, and potentially people they're using a Tesla autopilot, but they're misusing it, right? Because they're doing their makeup or watching Netflix on their phone because they think the car is going to keep them safe. When, as we just learned, Tesla is only like a level 2 autonomous driving car at this point. And then the other factor too is just that it's going to take probably a couple of decades, even once we have the technology, to fully replace the fleet that's currently out in the world driving.
Absolutely. So I think it's something to monitor, but at least at the current trajectory of what it looks like that the technology is playing out, I don't think it's something that's thesis breaking for the company. I still think there's opportunities in the future for Copart.